Hello everyone. Welcome to another Q&A test drill with explanation naman. And today we will going to learn a lot of things specifically on the topic crop science. Kaya makinig kayo, sit back, relax, makinig kayo because there's a lot of topics to unpack within this 5 question test drills. Okay? So unahin natin to. Scientifically, the grass family is the same as Gramineae, yun yung isa, Poaceae, or Monocotyledonae. Monocotyledonae. So we're looking at two terms that are similar or possibly statements, itong lahat ng to ay hindi pare-parehas. So the options are 1 and 2 are true. So ibig sabihin, Gramineae and Poaceae is referring to grass family. 1 and 2 are false, so they are not referring to grass family. 1 and 3 are true, so Gramineae and Monocotyledonae are referring to grass family, or 3 is false. Okay? So ano kaya ang tamang sagot dyan? The correct answer here is letter A. Gramineae and Poaceae refers to the grass family. Now, we can understand these concepts primarily kapag babalikan natin yung lesson natin on the nomenclature in botany. Or what is nomenclature? Basically, this is the system na ginagamit natin to name living organisms, and in the context of plants, in the context of botany, to name plant organism. So sa botany, itong system na to, itong nomenclature system na to, ensures na standardize lahat yung pagpapangalan natin sa mga organism na pinag-aaralan natin. Bakit? Para maiwasan natin yung confusion kapag nag-usap-usap yung ibang mga scientists dito sa Pilipinas and sa Europe or sa Japan. Why? Kasi iba-iba naman yung tawag natin sa mga halaman na nakikita natin sa bawat bansa natin. So dahil sa differences na yun, kailangan natin ng standardized naming system, and we call that the nomenclature system of classification, para kapag sinabi natin yung pangalan na yan, automatic, ito yung organism na tinutumpok natin. Yan. Okay? So yan yung importance ng nomenclature sa botany. Okay? Now, in terms of the grass family, tignan natin ano ba yung basis of classification niya per the broadest level up until it reaches yung grass family level. Of course, marami pang kasunod dyan, pero dahil nag-focus tayo doon sa tanong na grass family, hanggang family lang muna tayo. So ano yung kingdom ng grass family? Well, of course, that would be plant kingdom or kingdom Plantae. Ano ang kanyang phylum? So in terms of phylum level, siya ay isang angiosperm. Angiosperm meaning it is part of the flowering plants. Ang opposite ng angiosperms are gymnosperms, which are non-flowering plants. In terms of class, siya ay isang monocot or class Monocotyledonae. So kanina, napansin nyo, isa ito sa mga choices, Monocotyledonae. So it's not referring to the family of grass, but rather it is referring to the class of monocots, or those flowering plants na mayroong isang cotyledon. Examples niyan, grasses, lilies, orchids, and bulbs. Pero specific tayo, anong family? 2 families yan, which are interchangeable, which are similar. You can put it as Poaceae or Gramineae. Now, this family includes grass crops in agriculture, such as our wheat, rice, corn, and barley. Now, if we will be diving deeper, possible example lang to, if we're looking at rice, for example, ang magiging subfamily niya would be subfamily Oryzoidae, and then possible na magkaroon ng tribe na Oryzae, and genus Oryza, then species Sativa. Yung ginagamit natin sa binomial nomenclature is yung genus and species, which is the Oryza sativa. Yan yung scientific name na tinatawag natin, scientific name ng rice. So bakit parehas lang ito? Well, apparently, Gramineae is the older name for the grass family. It comes from the Latin word gramen. Okay? It comes from the Latin word gramen, meaning simply as grass. Now, for many years, ito yung ginagamit natin na official name for grass up until such time na the organization, ano bang organization to? Basta the organization that had been settling this system of classification adopted a new name for grass, yan yung Poaceae. Okay? Now, the name Poaceae is derived from the genus Poa, which includes species like bluegrass. And itong change na to aligns with the modern naming conventions in botany. However, you need to understand, Graminae and Poaceae, they are always used interchangeably. So kapag sinabi ng scientist na Graminae, he or she is referring to the grass family. If he or she says it's Poaceae, he or she is referring to the grass family as well. Kaya naman, ang tamang sagot doon, 1 and 2 statement, which is Graminae and Poaceae, both refers to the same family, which is the grass family. The next question, which is related to number 1, would be the botanical classification of agricultural crops is the grouping of plants according to its morphological similarities. And it was founded by this scientist. So, sino daw ang nag-found or nag-set basically ng botanical system of classification? Si Pasteur ba yan? Si Leeuwenhoek? Si Linnaeus? Or si Hooke? Alam na siguro natin ang sagot. Ang sagot dyan is si Linnaeus. Okay? So, Carl Linnaeus is the founder of the botanical classification system. Actually, he is often referred to as the father of modern taxonomy. He is a Swedish botanist, okay? And siya yung nagpauso nitong classification na to, primarily nga para ma-standardize yung mga pangalan ng mga halaman na kanilang nire-research noon and up until now. So he developed a system known as the binomial nomenclature. So yun yung system na ginamit niya, binomial nomenclature. And yan yung ginagamit din natin ngayon if we are referring to, kapag tinatanong tayo ng ano yung scientific name nitong halaman na to or nitong hayop na to. So itong binomial nomenclature, kaya nga siya bi, is composed of the two-part Latin name ng genus and species nung particular na halaman. For example, yung ating Oryza sativa. Yan, di ba? Oryza is your genus, species would be sativa. Now, yung botanical classification na sinet ni Carl Linnaeus is based on the morphological characteristic of plants. Ibig sabihin, yung structure ng how plants look and how plants are structured, doon niya binabase yung classification ng halaman. So base doon sa structure nila, whether they are, like for example, whether they are flowering or non-flowering, whether they are monocot or dicot, doon niya kinakategorize and dinidivide, sinasubdivide yung classification ng mga halaman na to. And this system allowed for a more organized and universally accepted way ng pag-aaral, researching, and communicating about plants, and later on it was adopted also by animals and other microorganisms as well. Now, tignan naman natin yung mga scientists sa choices. Baka lang may makuha tayong idea or concept din sa kanila. For example, si Louis Pasteur. Now, si Louis Pasteur, he is a French chemist and microbiologist known for his work on vaccination, microbial fermentation, and, kaya nasa pangalan na niya, pasteurization. O, ano pa kasi ang pasteurization? Ito yung proseso ng pagpatay ng harmful microorganisms sa pagkain and beverages, particularly sa gatas. Okay? Kaya hindi po pwedeng diretso ka uminom doon sa suso ng baka. Kailangan i-pasteurize mo muna yan para maalis yung mga harmful organisms na maaaring makasama at makaapekto sa iyong tiyan. So paano niya ginagawa yung pasteurization na to? Basically, what happens in pasteurization is that yung gatas, it will be heated high enough to kill most of the harmful bacteria or organism, pero hindi ganun kataas. So it's not at boiling level. It is actually at 72 degrees Celsius. So after heating the milk, automatic pinapalamig din yan agad-agad para hindi na mag-spread out pa or hindi na mag-grow pa or mag-propagate yung microorganism na nasa gatas. So yan si Louis Pasteur. O how about si Anthony van Leeuwenhoek? Sino ba yan? Si Anthony van Leeuwenhoek is called the father of microbiology. Why? Bakit kaya? Because he is known for developing microscope. Okay? So, yung microscope na ginagamit natin ngayon is based on the design of Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. Okay? Kaya dahil na-imbento niya yung microscope, siya yung una ring naka-observe and naka-describe ng microorganism, kaya siya tinawag na father of microbiology. O, how about si Robert Hooke? Now, si Robert Hooke naman, yan ay isang English scientist. Famous rin siya sa microbiology and he first coined the term cell. So siya yung unang nagpalaganap ng term na cell. Kaya mayroon tayong cell na tinatawag ngayon. How did he derive the word cell? By observing the cork under a microscope. Nung kasing isinubject niya sa microscope yung cork, nakita niya parang may mga selda, may mga kwarto-kwarto. Kaya napasabi siya, cell ang tawag doon. So yun na rin yung ginagamit nating term ngayon sa pag-aaral ng ating cell. Sa hayop man yan or sa halaman man yan. Now, this next question, very interesting to. Kasi mayroon tayong konti lang naman, konting computation. So dito, it is a system of planting fruit trees, where trees are set equidistant to one another from every direction, forming an equilateral triangle. Ano kaya ang tawag dyan? Tawag kaya dyan ay letter A, hexagonal, B, rectangular, C, quincunx, or letter D, contour or terrace planting. So we are looking at the system of planting fruit trees kung saan trees are set equidistant to one another, forming an equilateral triangle. Madali lang sana, no? Kung may kung may triangular na nakalagay. Anyways, ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter A, hexagonal. And hexagonal is also called triangular. Makikita natin mamaya kung bakit. But before that, let's talk about ano ba yung planting pattern or planting arrangement. Well, planting pattern or planting arrangement, madalas yan ginagamit sa mga prutasan, sa mga orchards. And this refers to the specific way plants or our trees or our crops are spaced and positioned in a given area. So yung mga design na to, yung layout na to, yung mga pattern na to can actually influence yung growth ng halaman, yung resource, yung pag-utilize natin ng resources, as well as yung management practices sa pagpapalaki ng mga halaman na ito. So isa-isahin natin, ano ba yung mga different patterns na ginagamit natin sa pagtatanim ng halaman, particularly ng mga prutas. So sa isang hektaryang lupa, isipin nyo na lang, pwede nating gawin itong mga patterns na so. So sa isang hektaryang lupa, pwedeng hexagonal ang pattern. So sa hexagonal planting system, yung ating mga fruit trees, they are planted so that each tree is equidistant from its neighboring trees, forming an equilateral triangle. Kaya din siya tinawag na triangular method. Kasi yung tatlong puno mo, they are equidistant from each other and they will form a triangle. Now, question, bakit naman siya tinawag na hexagonal? Kasi yung sentro na puno mo, ito, napapaligiran yan ng 6 na puno. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if we're going to look at its shape, it would be shaped like a hexagon. Now, if you're looking it from above, hexagon yung mafo-form ng mga puno na nasa gitna. Kaya tinawag din siyang hexagonal pattern of planting. O how about yung rectangular or yung square? Pretty straightforward yan. Sa planting system na to, the crops or the trees, they are planted in rows and columns. Kaya nagke-create ka ng grids. Yan, may mga grids ka dyan, of course. So kapag pare-parehas yung sides nung iyong length and width, you call that as a square. Kapag hindi, katulad nito, you call that as rectangular. As simple as that. How about yung quincunx? Yung quincunx is basically your rectangular or square. Ang kaso lang, maglalagay ka ng puno sa gitna. Yun naman yung ating quincunx planting pattern. So square yan, square or rectangular, pero maglalagay ka ng puno sa gitna. That is called your quincunx pattern planting. Now, how about your contour or terrace planting? Nasa pangalan na po yung sagot. When we say contour, we are following yung natural na contour ng mountain. So isipin nyo na lang, I think I have discussed this sa soil science or possibly another subject. So isipin nyo na lang kapag naglalakad kayo sa isang bundok, pinapalibutan yung isang bundok, kapag lumilibot kayo doon sa line kung saan hindi kayo tumataas or hindi kayo bumababa, ang tawag doon, contour line. So doon mo itatanim yung mga puno mo, yung mga prutas mo. So madalas ginagamit ang contour planting kapag you are planting along the slope. So katulad nung isang kaibigan ko na nasa mountain province, they are doing contour planting when they have planted their pongkan. Kasi nga sa bundok sa bundok na itanim yung mga pongkan na yon. Isa rin sa purpose actually ng contour planting ay para ma-avoid natin yung soil erosion. Why? Kasi kapag umulan, mostly ang flow ng tubig niyan is paganyan. Pero dahil naglagay ka na ng plants dito sa parallel side niya, may kokontra na ngayon nung soil erosion. So yan yung isa sa mga purpose ng contour planting. Now for the first three, itry natin isolve yung plant population gamit yung formula for each planting pattern. So unahin natin, for example, sa square method. So ito yung problem natin. A banana is planted 3 meters apart, so yun yung kanyang planting distance, 3 meters apart in a 7-hectare area. That is 700 meters in length and 100 meters in width. So yan yung ating given. So ang gagawin natin, i-compute natin yung plant population in the different planting pattern. Unahin natin sa square method. So sa square method, pretty straightforward. Ang formula is your area, divide it by the planting distance squared. So ano yung area natin? Our area is 7 hectares. Our area is 7 hectares. Our planting distance is 3 meters. Now, para meters yung parehas na gagamitin nating variable kasi hectares to meters yan, kailangan natin i-convert yung 7 hectares to meters. And 7 hectares to meters is around what? So 1 hectare is 10,000 meters, so that would be 70,000 meters. So, gawin natin yan. Ano yung area? The area is 70,000 meters divided by your plant population, which is 3 meters. This is 3 meters square. 70,000 meters squared pala yan. Kasi yun yung conversion ng hectares. And 3 meter squared. Or 3 by 3. So 70,000 square meters, i-divide mo ngayon sa 3 by 3 is 9 meters squared. So ang tamang sagot dyan ay, so magka-cancel out yung meter squared natin. 3, so 70,000 divided by 9, we have 7,777 plant population. 7,777 plant population. As simple as that. Very straightforward. How about when we use Quincunx method? So, Quincunx method, medyo tricky. Ano? Pero ang naidagdag lang na variable dyan is yung ating length. Ano yung length natin? 700 meters. And yung width is 100 meters. So, yun yung isa-substitute natin dito sa formula on Quincunx method. So, again, ano ulit yung ating area? Yung area natin is 70,000 meters squared over 9 meters squared. So, paano ko nakuha yung 9? 3 times 3. Okay? 3 times 3. 3 squared. Plus, L is 700 meters. Okay? 700 meters, i-divide mo sa, ano yung S? 3. 3 meters lang ha, hindi yan S squared. So, 3 meters lang yan. Plus, width is 100 meters. Minus, sorry. So, may minus 1 ka pa pala doon. So, wait lang. Erase na muna natin. We need to follow the formula. So, 700 minus 1. Tapos plus, yung width natin is 100 meters minus 1 over S is 3 meters. So, alam na natin yung sagot dito, 7,000 meters squared divided by 9 meters squared is approximately 7777.77 plus, okay, complete lang ako, plus 700 minus 1 ay 699. Ba't ko pa ginawa yun? Divide mo sa 3, 233. Cancel na yan. Plus 100 minus 1 is 99 divided by 3, which is 33. So, i-add lang natin yan. 7777. Alisin mo na siguro to kasi wala naman tayong 0.77 na plant pop. Just to simplify the matter, 233 plus 33 is 8,043 plant population. So if we use Quincunx method, medyo mas marami yung pwede nating itanim at 8,043 plant population. Bakit mas madami? Kasi nga, di ba, sa rectangle lang yun, pero sa Quincunx method, maglalagay tayo ng isang puno sa gitna ng bawat rectangle or bawat square as we have described the layout kanina. Kaya mas marami talaga sa Quincunx method. How about sa triangular method? So, sa triangular method, yung area mo, i-divide mo lang yan sa S squared, sa plant distance squared times 0.866, which is fixed. Okay? Fix yung number na yan. So, huwag nyo nang i-discover kung paano nakuha yung number na yan. Fix yan, given yan. So, ano yun? Yung area natin is 7,000 meters squared, 70,000 meters squared. I-divide natin sa, ano yung S squared ulit natin? That's 9. 9 meters squared. Again, 3 squared is 9. Times 0.866. So that would be 70,000 meters squared over 9 times 0.866. 9 times 0.866 is 7.794. 7.794. So, ano sagot dyan? 70,000, divide it by 7.794. 7.794. We now have 8981. 8981 na plant population. So among the three, ang pinaka-efficient among the three is your triangular method. And madalas rin sa mga orchard, sa mga prutasan, yan din talaga yung ginagamit natin. Yan din talaga yung ginagamit natin para mas efficient yung mga prutas, yung bilang ng prutas na itatanim natin sa area. So, pinaka-efficient yan. Tama mo, 8981 yung pwede mong itanim if you use triangular method. Whereas kapag quinconx, 8,043 lang. Kapag rectangular naman, 7,777 lamang yung pwede mong maitanim. So, next question. Malinaw na tayo doon. Huwag na natin balikan. Syempre, pwede nyo balikan kasi nasa YouTube kayo. Anyways, this one. Analyze the following statements. Ano yung first statement? The most colorful whorl of the flower is the petals, and this attract insects for pollination. Ano naman yung second statement? Flowers that are inconspicuous. Ibig sabihin ng inconspicuous, hindi ganun ka-attractive or hindi siya ganun kapansinin. Kaya wag mong sasabihin sa shota mo na inconspicuous siya, ha? Wag mong gagawin yon. Sasampalin ka ng jowa mo pag sinabi mo yon. So flowers that are inconspicuous are provided with mechanisms responsible for attracting insects called showy or brightly colored leaves. So ano kaya yung tama dyan within the choices is among the choices? Statement 1 is correct or true and statement 2 is incorrect or false. Statement 1 is incorrect or false and statement 2 is correct or true. Both statements are correct or true, or letter D, both statements are false. So sinasabi sa letter A, statement 1 tama, statement 2 mali. Letter B, statement 1 mali, statement 2 tama. Letter C, both statements 1 and 2 tama. Letter D, both statements 1 and 2 mali. So ano kaya? I-analyze muna natin yung first statement. Sabi sa first statement, the most colorful whorl of the flower is called your petal, and this attract insects for pollination. Now, a flower is composed of several parts. And when we say whorls, this includes yung parts niya such as the sepals, petals, stamens, and carpel. And tama na yung petal natin, yan yung most colorful part. This one. Our petal is also called the corolla. Yan yung pinakamakulay. And the purpose of the petal is, tama rin, to attract insects for pollination. Kaya siya makulay kasi yung kulay na yan, ang primary role niya ay para mag-attract ng insects. Ano ba yung purpose ng insect na yon? Para makapag-pollinate ka. Right? Magkaroon ng sexual process between the female reproductive organ and the male reproductive organ and magkakaroon ng reproduction of that specific plant organism. So tama. Statement number 1 is tama. So it is correct. How about statement number 2? Sabi niya sa statement number 2, flowers that are inconspicuous are provided with mechanisms responsible for attracting insects called showy or brightly colored leaves. Now some flowers, hindi colorful, hindi sila showy, kumbaga. Maaari, maliit sila or masyadong berde or hindi lang talaga pansinin. Now, to attract pollinators, itong mga flowers na to, they used modified structures, mostly modified leaves, and we call these leaves as bracts. Okay? Ano ba yung ginagawa ng mga bracts na to? Now, these bracts, these are showy and brightly colored leaves. Okay? So these are showy and brightly colored leaves. And ang ginagawa niyan is yung purpose nung isang normal na flower na na-discuss natin kanina. Siya yung nagsuserve as an attraction para lumapit yung insekto and maipollinate yung flower na hindi ganun kapansinin. So isang classic example dyan, yung halaman natin na poinsettia. Yung poinsettia natin, yung flower niyan ay yung nasa gitna na maliliit, hindi gaano pansinin. Pero ano yung naging evolution niya para to cope up with that kind of structure, floral structure that the poinsettia have? Nag-produce siya ng mga bracts, colorful leaves that will now attract insects para makapag-pollinate ngayon and maparami yung kanyang lahi. So yung red leaves na nakapaligid sa flower ng isang poinsettia plant, that is not actually a flower, but rather a modified leaf. Okay? And ang tawag natin doon, bracts. Now, balikan natin yung statement. Sabi niya, flowers that are inconspicuous, such as this, nag-evolve sila, nagkaroon sila ng mechanism for attracting insects called, ano yung mechanism na yon? Showy and brightly colored leaves. And this statement, therefore, is also true. Okay? Ano yung tawag natin sa showy or brightly colored leaves? We call that as bracts. And this statement is also true. So if statement 1 is true, and statement 2 is true, then the correct answer is both statements are true and correct. Diba? O last question. Padako naman tayo sa seed. It is the inability of a mature seed to germinate due to the absence of favorable environmental factors necessary for germination. Ano kaya ang tawag dyan? Do we call that as quiescence, imbibition, dormancy, physiological immaturity? The inability of a mature seed to germinate due to the absence of favorable environmental factors necessary for germination. So ang may kasalanan kung bakit hindi nag-germinate yung seed mo is environmental factors. Ano kaya ang tawag doon sa term na yon? Now, for us to answer this, let's go ahead and discuss how seeds germinate. Now, paano ba nag-germinate ang seed? Ano yung first step? The seed needs to absorb water. Okay? That's the first step. And ang tawag doon is imbibition. So, yun yung isa sa mga option kanina. Imbibition simply means your seed will absorb water. So that's the first absorption of water. And kailangan yun para mag-germinate yung seed. Kaya kapag nagtatanim kayo, di ba? Kapag magpapa-germinate kayo ng seed, always yan, pag itinanim mo yung seed, kailangan diligan mo siya. Hindi flooded, pero dapat may moisture yung lupa para magkaroon ng imbibition and mag-germinate yung ating seed. Now, for some, paano kapag walang tubig? And nailagay na lang yung buto na yon for some reason. So the environment is too dry. So masyadong dry yung lupa. Yung seed ay hindi nag-germinate. Bakit? Because of the concept of quiescence. Okay? Now in quiescence, ito yung hindi pag-germinate ng ating seed due to external factors. In our case, it is too dry. Okay? Kaya ito yung tamang sagot doon sa tinatanong kanina. The reason why the seed do not germinate, it is because of an external factor. And in our case, the external factor is that wala siyang tubig. Now, let's say nag-add ka ng tubig dyan, therefore, mag-move forward siya sa kanyang germination process. Now, how about if the seed, let's say, may tubig naman dun sa lupa, pero at some point, hindi pa rin siya nag-germinate. Ano naman kaya ang tawag doon sa condition na yon? We call that condition now as dormancy. And sa dormancy, this is actually a survival mechanism of some seeds. Kasi may mga times talaga na, let's say may tubig nga, pero paano pag biglang nawala yung tubig? Kumbaga, may tubig nga, pero paano pag hindi sufficient? Nag-germinate pa rin ba yung seed? So may mga seeds na hindi nag-germinate. And that is actually protecting yung genetic material sa kanilang embryo. So nagkakaroon ng mga dormant seeds. Now, dormancy happens mostly because of the internal seed characteristics. Okay? Yung seed mismo ang dahilan kung bakit hindi siya nag-germinate. Ano yung mga reason na yon? For example, impermeable yung kanyang seed coat. Hindi napapasukan ng tubig. Alright? Sabi ko kanina, kailangan ng imbibition kung saan magkakaroon ng moisture bago siya mag-sprout and mag-germinate. Possible din na masyadong hard yung seed coat. Ibig sabihin, masyadong matigas, hindi makalabas yung embryo palabas. So, hindi siya maka-sprout, kumbaga. Possible din, ito yung isa sa mga choices kanina, physiological immaturity. Yung embryo natin, hindi pa ganun ka-mature, kaya hindi siya nag-germinate. So we need more time for this. Or, possible na may chemical inhibitor doon sa iyong buto, such as yung ating ABA or abscisic acid. It is inhibiting your seed to sprout, to germinate. So in the case of impermeable seed coat, possible pa rin naman na mag-germinate yung seed mo, for example, kapag nagkaroon ng prolonged rain. So kapag may prolonged rain, for example, ano yung nangyayari? Lumalambot din yung ating seed kasi nga moist yung lupa, moist yung environment na ginagalawan niya, lumalambot siya. So yung impermeable seed coat niya, nawaalis na rin. Kumbaga nababalatan siya dahil nga patuloy yung pag-ulan, dahil basa yung lupa, and lumalambot din yung kanyang seed coat. And kapag nangyari yon, pwede na rin siyang mag-germinate. Possible din na kung sakali, nagkaroon ng forest fire. Yung forest fire na yon, it would soften yung seed coat ng ating halaman, ay nung ating seed, I mean. And yung pag-alis yung pag-soften ng kanyang seed coat would still result to germination. O let's say physiological maturity. O minsan kailangan yung seed natin, kailangan lang niya maghintay para matapos yung process ng embryo development within the seed, and kapag natapos na yun, possible rin na makapag-germinate na siya. O how about yung chemical inhibitor? O kapag umulan, possible na yung abscisic acid mo mahugasan. Kapag nahugasan yan, di mawawala yung chemical inhibitor na abscisic acid, then makakapag-germinate na rin yung seed mo. Right? So ito yung mga concepts about seed germination and the factors affecting it. And again, uulitin ko, ang tamang sagot for this question, the inability of your mature seed to germinate due to the absence of favorable environment is called quiescence. Kasi ang factor dyan is the external environment. Kapag ang factor is yung mismong seed mo talaga, ang tawag doon, dormancy. Imbibition is the process of your seed absorbing water, whereas physiological maturity is one reason kung bakit dormant yung ating buto. Thank you so much guys for listening. I hope you have learned a lot because I have learned a lot habang piniprepare ko itong Q&A na to and researching about it. And it's really very interesting. Hopefully magamit nyo to sa inyong review, sa inyong exam, and sa mga future professional pursuits nyo na darating pa. God bless. Thank you.